Welcome to Our Two Cents, a podcast about money, real life, and the decisions that shape both. Welcome back to the Our Two Cents podcast. And today we're talking about something that's not so spoken about in the personal finance space. And that would be why you may still feel broke, even if you're a high income earner.
Yeah, in this particular episode, we're going to touch on a few key points, things that we've researched, but also through discussion with some friends that fall into this category. And there's a common or underlying theme that a lot of people are going through, and they just feel like they just can't seem to get it on a monthly basis.
Yeah, number one would definitely be that your fixed costs are too high. And so let's review a little bit fixed costs. That is everything that you're committed to paying on a monthly basis. So think mortgage or rent, utilities, car payment, subscriptions, all those things that you are locked into paying. Now, obviously, subscriptions can vary, but those are what we call your fixed costs. And many a times, your housing and your car payment will make up 50% of that fixed cost. I was doing a little bit of research before we got started, and the average, and this is new data, so early 2026, the average car payment for a used car is around $550, and for a new car is $750, which just blows my mind.
And that's even on the low end, right? Like there's lots of people paying more than $1,000. Imagine you've got two cars that you're financing. You could easily be spending $1,000 to even $1,500 on brand new vehicles. And that's a lot of money.
So then you add to that insurance, you add subscriptions. The average family is paying around $229, I think it is, per month for subscriptions.
Yeah.
But if you ask them how much they think.
Exactly. They're going to probably say that it's about $86. And I actually asked a friend of mine about his subscriptions, and he indicated he's just got a handful, but when he conducted an audit, it was actually higher than the $229 mark.
Yeah, and look, we're not the people that are going to say, cut out every coffee, cut out every opportunity to go out to eat, cut out every spending opportunity. But what we are saying is when you have such large fixed cost and then you also living a lifestyle that meets your income, you can end up spending way more than you think you're spending, and you're guilt-free spending, or what we would consider leftover after your fixed costs and you're investing in your savings. And it puts you in a place that you are overcommitted.
Yeah, I think a lot of people actually find themselves in a position where their fixed cost actually takes up most of the income. And so there's no wiggle room for food or anything like that. And those things are needed, right? And so what they end up doing is they put it on a card, or they have loans, or they are paying the bare minimum, but they're incurring lots of interest, which is actually going to cost them in the long run.
Another thing I see with high earners is that the things that are put on their fixed income or their fixed cost list is some things that you could consider variable, but it has been so ingrained into their lives that there's no taking it off the fixed cost list. So I have to pay for that every month. Well, do you have to pay for piano lessons 3 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever it may be, whether it's for you or your kids? You have to be careful what things that you're putting on that fixed cost list that you're committing to every month, because it's easy to put them on, but it is a lot harder to move things off the fixed cost list.
Yeah, and especially where your kids are involved too, right? Like I think of sports and things like that where you are committed to a particular sport or activity, but all of a sudden it could be $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to afford it, but you don't want to tell the kid no.
Right.
We're going to touch on a few of those things in a future episode or future podcast. But you just have to be mindful of what your true fixed costs should be.
Yeah. And then, of course, lifestyle creep. I mean, when you're making 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, the first thing I think about is, okay, well, what am I going to do to make my life easier? Maybe like outsourcing cleaning or yard work or things like that. And all fine and great if you have it built into your spending plan. But majority of the time when income, especially when there's like a big jump in income, the first thing is like, then what are the nice things that I can afford to buy now?
Yeah. And especially when it comes to food and convenience.
Yeah.
Even today, right? Like we were driving home from our chiropractor, and we were hungry. And it's like, do we go and eat out, or do we just DoorDash? And if you're going to DoorDash, you're going to have that delivery fee. And we decided to go to Chipotle. And so all of a sudden, it might seem small that we end up paying, let's say, $15. But if we had purchased via DoorDash, we would have added on a bunch of things. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at $40 or $50 for the two of us. And you might say, yeah, that's just one meal. But one meal turns into 2 meals, 3 meals, 4 meals a week. And all of a sudden, you're spending $150 to $200 a week eating out.
Right. Well, and like with groceries as well. There's a grocery store around here that I love called Central Market, and it is higher quality protein, higher quality produce. But the thing about Central Market is you can walk out with one bag of grocery. If you're watching Central Market, if you're listening, I love you, but it is a pricier store. And if you're consistently shopping at the higher end grocery stores, or you get a raise and you move, you're like, oh, I can move from my mid-level grocery store to a higher grocery store. It's like, well, we can defend it by saying, well, it's still food. I'm still not eating out. I'm still providing food at home. But are you making the best decision of where you're buying those groceries when you have more income and that lifestyle creep starts coming back?
Yeah, so one other thing that I think is important to mention at this point in time, we are not saying that you shouldn't be spending more the more you make, right? So if you
Right.
get a bonus, go out, have a meal, enjoy yourself. But what I am saying is maybe consider having percentages for every spending category.
Right.
And so, as an example, if you're making $50,000 a year, and you say that you're going to spend, let's say, 10% on savings, or you're going to set aside 10% on savings, when you are earning 100,000 or 150,000, keep that 10%.
Or bump it up.
Or bump
I
it
mean,
up slightly,
when you
right?
get raises, you should be considering investing and saving within that raise, and that's where the issue happens.
But I think also that what people sometimes do is by not having percentages, all of a sudden you are just going to look at it from a dollar perspective, right? And so all
Right.
of a sudden you're going on an extra holiday, or you're upgrading your iPhone every time a new iPhone comes out. But if you look at it, you're actually not going to be setting aside cash for things like your savings and investing.
Right.
So that might be a way to keep yourself on track.
Right. And if you've been around a minute, you've heard us say that we don't love the term budgeting. We like spending plan. And the reason for that is because if there is no margin in your money, if you are spending down to every dollar or every dollar is spoken for, then there's no breathing room. That's why we like having like fixed costs. If you're looking at a spending plan that we would make for a client, it would go through their fixed costs, it would go through their savings and investing. And then it goes through their guilt-free spending. So it's larger buckets versus line iteming every
Yeah.
single penny. So if everything is down dollar to dollar, penny to penny, then you're going to end up in constant stress.
Yeah, and especially with the economy just being, I wouldn't say unreliable, but it's erratic, right? So today gas is $4.50. 3 months ago it was $2.80.
Yeah.
So if you are finding yourself in a position where you are maxed out, and so you're spending every dollar on expenses now, when things aren't great, that's where people dig themselves into the hole of debt, and they start using credit cards and they can't pay it off. And again, no judgment here. We're not going to judge you, but at the end of the day, we always believe in, or we personally believe in, having a buffer
Yeah.
and not having, or finding yourself in a position where your margin is so fine that if there's any changes or unexpected changes, or even an emergency, that you're going to have to find yourself in a position where you are not going to be able to afford it.
Completely thrown off.
Yeah.
Another one is just not talking about it with your spouse. I mean, we've talked about it time and time again that communication is key to your personal finances, especially if you're married. If one person is leading the finances, great, but you both need to be communicating and contributing. I mean, we talk regularly about
Yeah.
finances. I'm the one that's paying the bills, I'm the one that's doing all the investment transactions, but you know exactly what's going on
Yeah.
at all times. And if one person is doing it all by themselves, that leads to resentment, frustration. It feels chaotic, it feels stressful, and that can lead to secret spending, ultimately debt on credit cards. What do you think?
Yeah, we've seen this firsthand, unfortunately, with, again, people that we know where one spouse was tasked with handling the finances and they completely kept the other spouse out of it. And as a result of that, there was, you can call it what you want, right? But secret spending, or even they thought they were doing things in the best interest of the family, but it actually wasn't. If they'd consulted their spouse first, they would have realized that they probably shouldn't have done it. The other thing that we see also when it comes to the communication side of things, which I think is key, is where you find either one spouse was a stay-at-home parent, whether it's the guy or the girl, the husband or the wife. Alternatively, if they're both working but one earns more,
Yeah.
but they feel because I work and we both work, or the one is working, but the one makes more money, that they're entitled to buy whatever they want. It just causes a lot of friction and tension in the household.
Right. And lastly, a thing that we've mentioned many times before is the YOLO mentality. you don't look at it. Now, I know when people are making multiple millions and things, you have wealth advisors and people that are speaking into your finances. But if you're making multiple six figures, there's still that behavior. And especially for those that have progressed in their career, they started with a lower income, they've worked hard, they've climbed the career ladder. And so there's a sense of entitlement, like, I deserve this. I have built this for myself. I've worked really hard for decades to be able to earn this salary that I'm earning. But there's still that behavior of never checking the bank account, because there's this internal mindset of like, I don't need to check the bank account. I'm making multiple six figures. I'm there. I've arrived. But if your lifestyle continues to increase, and there's no management of that, then you're going to continue to be in the same situation of, you don't know the numbers, you don't know what you're spending, what you're saving, what your income is, your net income is regularly, and that can lead to high income earners being in debt.
Yeah, and even beyond that, right? Like, we know several high income earners who have set aside nothing for
For
retirement
retirement, yeah.
because they're living in the moment.
Yeah.
And I know that there could be circumstances, and there might be, like, everybody's story is different. And so, again, no judgment over here, but just something that's very important, that the more you make, like, we can't overemphasize this, guys. Think about your future. Yes, you can enjoy the now. Yes, you can go on vacations, but don't forget about the future, because you might have a great job today. Something might happen tomorrow that you are no longer able to work, or you might not be able to earn that salary anymore. And then what? Which you've got the opportunity right now to be able to, yes, enjoy your life, but also to think about 10, 20, 30 years into the future. Because if you start now, you're going to find yourself in a way better off position down the line.
That's right.
So as we end today's podcast, I've got the Our 2 Cents question
Okay.
for today.
Okay.
So which one do you think is better? Football, European football, where you kick the ball, or American football, where you throw the ball?
That's hard. I mean, it would be reverse asking you when you grew up around something, right? Like, fall was always my favorite because it was football season and it was getting colder in Texas finally, and the Friday Night Lights vibe. And that's just like what core memories were built on, being raised in Texas where football is king. But I will say I have been won over some. I really enjoyed our experience. We went out to a European football game last month, and the vibe in the stadium was electric and fun, and everyone's singing. And so I don't have a favorite between the two.
We'll see you next time on the Our 2 Cents podcast.